I'm doing an updated review of under the hood of an 85 Isuzu pup pickup, and this is the latest edition. It's a 650 cranking amp battery from AutoZone. I guess it's their best seller. Seems to be working good so far. I like it. These are the original boots, cable boots to the original cables. The negative is the original cable. I cut and spliced in an brand new adapter cable. It's set with a set screw, splices in with a set screw. And that's nothing. Just kind of something to look at. I have a fuel filter in line against the passenger side firewall. There's also one in the back near the tank, which is standard. It has a jack, wrench, original. It has a spare tire lowering cranking tool. That's really old school there. You don't see those anymore. The Weber carburetor was one of the last installs that I did on this. And the fuel pressure gauge. And it seems to be running about 2 pounds per square inch of fuel pressure, even though my regulator says 3.5. If I put it on 3, it'll still say 2 pounds on the gauge. So I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe it's the regulator. I think I'm going to change this regulator out and put a Holly regulator on, or something a little bit more higher quality. Still have the original fuel pump mechanically, and one of my innovations and personal own designs was putting the cool tips on the original fan. And this was my bright idea. Originally I was going to put a different fan on completely, so I bought this fiberglass fan from Canada. And then I realized I was going to need some spacers and adapters to set it, at the right distance between the radiator and everything else over here. And I realized that it was kind of difficult to not hit my power steering pump pulley. So I just kind of bagged that idea, and I cut the tips off of the aftermarket fan and just kind of used them as extensions, and I call them cool tips. That's my name for them. You heard it here first, folks. Now this is a little close to the radiator. You probably noticed. I think there's about an inch or so there. But I'm getting about 20% more airflow suction through the core of this radiator with these extensions on here. Before, I'll come over here. Before, my fan was cooling a circle about like that, and the rest of this was hot. But now that I added on these extensions, it's actually cooling, the whole radiator core area. And since I placed the fan closer to the radiator, it's drawing more air at a faster rate, and it's really keep cooling the water down really well. And I'm also getting more airflow pushing back over the engine, especially up here on the head area. Before, the air was just a little bit lower, like below the top of the head. Now it's cooling everything. So I'm real happy with that. And yeah, there's the clutch cable. Usually these crack out, and I've had to like add plates on before on other pickups I've had. This is probably my 5th or 6th Isuzu pup, can't remember. But that one's in good condition, you can see. That's the fuse box, voltage regulator, some sort of relay to the lighting. The aluminum radiator gets pretty hot. You don't want to touch it or come near it when the engine's running, because the top of this radiator gets really hot. The core stays cool though, real cool to the touch. And the Weber carburetor is working good. Took me a while to get it tuned. I'm not sure if I don't think it's tuned completely the way that it should be yet, but right now I have it adjusted where it's running and idling good, runs on its own, and it seems to be where it should be, but I still think I need to make an adjustment on the choke. When I rebuilt this motor, I just re-ringed it. I didn't rebore it, and I used a couple pistons from the original motor. This isn't the original motor. I have the original motor, and I'm going to rebuild that later on in the future, and I'll probably do a complete blueprint, line bore, and new pistons, everything on that one. But this is an engine that I bought somewhere in it came from Louisiana, Georgia somewhere, and I just decided to rebuild this one first and save the original one for later. The original one was in really good condition because somebody rebuilt it prior to me buying it, and had 0.010 oversized pistons in it, and I used a couple of those oversized pistons in this one because these cylinders were more worn out than the original. So, and I didn't do too much to this engine, just new rings, new bearings, polished the crank journals, just polished them. They didn't need to be turned. And put a new oil pump on. It's got a new alternator. And I had the head cleaned and re-deck surfaced and checked for cracks. And then the block was, checked for cracks. And then I just holding the cylinders out and put it back together. That's about it. And it's running good. Gets me to where I want to go. No problems. I do plan on taking this air pump off eventually, and this pipe, air injection pipe, and plugging the EGR port off with a plate. I know a lot of people do that, and they say you're supposed to do that when you put the Weber carburetor on. I haven't done that yet. I've had 2 of these, put 2 Weber carbs on, and I just left everything on, and it seems to run fine, after you plug all of the vacuum ports off. And yeah, no complaints, working good. And you can see you got the vacuum diagram there. And that's a nice diagram. They really knew how to make these back in the day. There's the tune-up specs. Nice to have those. Little jacking placement label on there. But I bought the truck a year ago from this old guy locally, and he told me that it was running fine and everything when he was driving it, and then all of a sudden it went poof. And I picked it up for like $500 from him. It was a little dirty, not bad, but when I saw it, I saw a lot of potential. It was clean. It was essentially rust-free because it's a California truck. Lived in California, and I think somebody drove it up here from California back in the 90s and maybe late 90s, and eventually a head gasket blew on it, which is a common problem we've all heard about, and that's probably because these were designed to go 55 cruising speed, because the speed limits were a lot lower back in the 80s. And I think the comfortable cruising is 55 to 60 in these. And a lot of people just winded them out, winded the RPMs out on them, doing 65, 70, racing them. And, they just weren't designed for that high RPM stuff. But they're definitely little workhorses. They're great for working around your place, hauling a load of gravel, bark dust, lumber, whatever, hauling debris to the dump. I do that a lot. And yeah, so that's it. And hope you enjoyed this video. See you on the next one. Thanks a lot.